You sure you don't want to talk about Prince William's wedding
No,
instead?
it's big. It's big. It's been consuming most of my day, but
It's it's
I'd like
uh,
to take a
basically
break from wedding talk.
it's basically taking all news coverage away from, I think, from what's rightfully happening and that should be rightfully covered in Syria. But you spoke about what took place in Daraa, and your guess is as good as mine. I mean, what I have been following, the sources on the ground that we've been following have some of them have confirmed about 83 dead, actually. That over the past few days in Daraa, there was this intense siege on the city with tanks and machine guns, and the 4th Division of the Army has been there, and they have not basically been able to, nobody has been able to go in and out or outside of the city. And so um, finally today, because I think of the wave of protests across Syria, some people have been able to kind of get out of their homes, and there were some protests that were in support of Daraa that were coming from the different villages surrounding the city and heading towards Daraa. And some people are saying that there have been bodies in the streets that have, somebody has said that there are about 83 bodies that have been found, that have been massacred over the past few days, with a lot more injured. And so just because the regime is not allowing any, any journalists or any sort of independent investigators, it's really hard to tell. But what we
Is
heard as well is that they finally got the electricity back up in Daraa again, and the Syrian regime, the Syrian TV, has been, was trying to kind of flip it upside down and make it sound like, the people of Daraa are celebrating the regime, basically ridding them of the extremist elements in Daraa, which, I mean, pretty much every other report we get is contrary, is exactly the opposite of that.
and Do you know if it's still just Maher Assad's 4th Division there? I heard there was a 5th Division there for a little while that started to have just they started a mutiny, but that kind of got contained. Have you heard anything along that line?
Well, yes. I mean, some of the reports again say that it was not only the 4th Division, and that they've had parts of the 5th Division, as you said, and the defections. Nobody knows which. Most of the defections, I think, that have been reported and again not confirmed, have been of the 5th Division, and some reporting say that even people within the 4th Division have defected. But it's really difficult to ascertain at this point. I mean, there are no facts that anybody can deal with. What we are dealing with are, sporadic messages that are coming from the ground on Twitter and other social media that basically, say that pretty much what has been happening is a city of defenseless civilians have been under siege by a military machine.
Have you heard what's going on up north in Latakia or Homs or even the Kurdish region? I haven't heard much about the Kurdish region for a while.
Well, the Kurds actually, I mean, this goes to kind of the unity of the Syrian people and how that has been expressed through, several revolutions, through several protests across the country. And so, again, there are reports of Kurds protesting even post the granting of the citizenship issue that
When was that?
that was about 3 weeks ago. I think it came simultaneously with the first announcement of lifting off the emergency law, and that apparently did not placate the Kurdish Syrians because clearly what they have been calling for is a lot more than what the regime has been willing to compromise or placate or throw their way. They have joined clearly the ranks of the protesters across Syria, asking for freedom, asking for government accountability, asking for some of them are actually going as far as asking for a regime change.
And
And as far as Latakia, we heard of a lot of protests in Latakia today and in Homs. The Latakia protests have been met with brutality again, and Latakia is no stranger to that sort of suppression of these protests. I mean, it has been taking place since the very beginning of the revolution, and there has been a few massacres that were committed in Latakia. over the past few weeks.
And then today was the first Friday where the Muslim Brotherhood, the Ikhwan, kind of endorsed or came out in support of these protests. Have you heard or seen any rumors of their influence?
Well, I mean, their influence. You really don't need rumors or any sort of these sort of facts to kind of analyze or ascertain the Muslim Brotherhood's influence. In my assessment, their influence has not been great, within Syria. They are
Not been great as not positive or not been large.
not has been large. It
Okay.
hasn't. It has not been large. I mean, clearly they belong to this camp of opposition that has formed. I mean, that has not been able to really materialize for a while inside of Syria. As political exiles, they have joined forces with other opposition leaders and figures across the world, especially in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment they decided to basically align themselves with the Khaddam movement or the Khaddam organization. Abdel Halim Khaddam, who's the ex vice president of Syria, and who's someone who's known for his own, record of brutality and bloodiness and corruption. They've sort of lost a lot of credibility and legitimacy among the ranks of the Syrian people. And so, generally speaking, I don't think the Syrian Muslim Brotherhood are necessarily, typically credible. And so, their endorsement of something like this, I'm not sure will amount to anything in terms of the momentum on the ground. I mean, one thing that we really need to be very cognizant of is that despite the brutality and despite the fact that the regime has attempted to make an example out of Daraa over the past week or so, and clearly that was an attempt to sort of circumvent and preempt and predict what will happen today, what would have happened today, Friday. As you know, Friday is the day of the Sabbath for Muslims, and the overwhelming majority of the Syrian population are Muslims. And so in an attempt to preempt that, they wanted to kind of set an example of Daraa and kind of point a finger and telling people that this is what's going to happen, this is what would happen, this is how we're going to be dealing with people if you decide to go out and protest en masse, just like Daraa. And in complete and absolute defiance and in complete and absolute solidarity, people were out today in thousands, if not hundreds of thousands. I mean, I saw myself a video that basically was captured earlier today, right after the Friday prayers that came out of several mosques in an area in Damascus that is smack in the middle of Damascus. I mean, we're talking downtown Damascus. An area called Midan, and then there's a major street, a commercial street called Sharia Khalid bin Walid. And I'm someone, who grew up in Syria. I'm very familiar with Damascus. So everything looked super familiar to me. And it was a mass protest. People were in the streets as far as the eye can see, chanting, telling their brethren, why are you afraid? Come down, join us. And some of the other chants were actually in solidarity with Daraa and against the killing of the innocent civilians. And so, that's significant today.
It seems like the violence is kind of creating more of a solidarity, like you've seen in a lot of other places as well.
Yeah, but what's super interesting about this is that we're not just talking about rubber bullets gas bombs. We're talking about live ammunition. People that decide to go down to into the streets, whether it's Damascus or Homs, Halab, Daraa, Banyas, Ladia, all of these cities. Whoever decides to get down in the streets is going there with the full knowledge that there's a good chance that they will be will not return, whether they'll be apprehended by the security forces or basically killed by live ammunition.
Yeah, I think Assad's the first dictator, possibly Gaddafi, to completely skip normal riot control procedures and skip right to live ammunition. And
absolutely. The difference between what's happening in Libya and what's happening in Syria is that the Libyans have decided to,
not take up arms.
and that's understandable. They decided to kind of pick up arms against and the craziness of Gaddafi, and that's because he employed, the Air Force and heavy artillery across the board. Luckily, that has not happened yet in Syria, and people are
So,
nervous, obviously.
so this leads to one of my other questions that we were talking about earlier. Who's running this opposition movement? Who's kind of decides, when are we going to change tactics? From what I've been hearing, um, the Syrian Americans in America sometimes have problems with Americans talking to the media, and then the Syrians on the ground sometimes have problems with Syrian Americans talking to the American media, and there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of there seems to be coordination on various levels, but no coordination between the levels. Is there organization? I know in Egypt, this was really Khalid Said and a lot of movements that were in progress with a lot of organization, and this was a little bit more spontaneous.
Yeah, and I think it has been spontaneous all over the Arab world. I mean, there are people who are obsessed and keep obsessing with who is behind this, and this is part of what the Syrian regime, has been propagating for a while. Is that this is something that has been sparked by quote unquote foreign agents or Islamists who want to take over, who have an agenda. And, the facts on the ground basically keep demonstrating that nothing could be further from the truth, that this is an organic revolution, that no matter who sparked it, I mean, no matter who kind of, lit the first spark, and obviously we have evidence on why this whole started. I mean, you know, everybody knows the story of the 10, 15 children that were detained
Mm-hmm.
early on in March because they wrote anti-government graffiti on the walls in Dara, and how these children were detained and then were tortured and were very badly treated, and and how that's kind of snowballed into an angry reaction by their community, and kind of snowballed into protests against the government. Now, that was the situation in Daraa. The situation across Syria, nobody can point the finger to a particular organization or
Yeah,
a particular individual and say that person or that organization is coordinating or leading. And that is, I think, the strength. I mean, a lot of people see it as a weakness, but in my opinion, that's the strength of the Syrian revolution.
it's a huge strength right now when a bunch of people can project their all these different sects can project their desires on this idea of getting Assad out. But moving into the next